Welcome back to episode 7 of 5 Chapter Rule. It's been a bit of a while, but here we're back again, and this time we're covering a manga called Angel Heart. And from what we gather, this is a spin-off, well, it's an alternative universe sequel to the very famous City Hunter manga, which we only found out after we read this, and we never read City Hunter, so I think we lost a bit of context with this manga that we would have had if we read it.
Yeah, that's going to be a big thing, because there could be references and Easter eggs from that we will just not understand.
Yeah, like it doesn't really explain much one of the main characters because it expects you to know who he is. The previous one, I guess it makes sense. It's like a sequel. But he did specify, the author, that yes, this is a sequel, but it's a alternate universe sequel because the original manga had a happy ending, and he doesn't want to undo the happy ending of the original one. So this is like an alternative universe if that happy ending went awry.
Yeah, this is also like 2 or 3 times as long as City Hunter as well.
Yeah, I mean, City Hunter did have multiple spin-offs and had like films and all sorts of shit.
Yeah, 360 chapters this.
Yeah, it's not finished yet by looks of it.
It did say ongoing, but I don't know if it hasn't been translated for a while.
Yeah, it had to tell sometimes these old ones. It's very old school.
Yep, it can be.
So the brief story summary of this one is a young Taiwanese assassin codenamed Glass Heart committed suicide by jumping off a building, and her heart was pierced by a metal fence. Miraculously, her life was saved by a heart transplant. During her recovery, she began to experience strange dreams, which led her to Japan looking for the donor of the heart. Happens to be Kari Makamori, the former partner of City Hunter, which would make so much more sense if you actually read City Hunter or watched the anime or whatever. The plot of this one, well, the story starts off with the assassin getting depressed due to witnessing a child go to their father shortly after
she kills
they
the
just
50th person.
Yeah.
And then as she's walking away, this child who was going to get ice cream comes back and finds her father shot, which sends her a little bit triggered, as in all the chapters so far, 1, 2, 3, and I think 4, it has imagery of every time she kills somebody, it shows her heart breaking a little bit more. And it was in that one, in chapter 1, where it completely breaks, and that's when she jumps off a building.
To be fair, that scene was very well done, the child bit, because you could see how that would play out in, let's say, the TV series or film. That would just, that would hurt.
And you can see how the assassinating...
Daddy, wake up, Daddy, wake up.
You can see how the assassinating weakens her and breaks her over time, which begs the question of, if they knew that was happening, why did they keep sending her on the missions anyway? But we'll get to those.
Because she was the most skilled operative. It's a plot line that we've seen before, but this manga did start in 2001, so it was definitely probably more original back then. I think it was back in 2001, bloody hell. Shows age.
So,
also, an important part of the plot is that some of the donor Kokori's memories and personality have been transplanted into Angel, along with the heart, which is a bit supernatural bullshit, but
story that does come up in, I think, chapter 5, but we'll do it chapter by chapter.
Yeah, the story flow is all right. It could be better. I kind of did struggle to follow this quite a bit at times.
To be fair, I did.
Reminds me, the story of this, how the plot follows, reminds me heavily of the Bourne series of films. How he's trying to go through his memories a little bit and how it flows. Although this did come out a year before the first Bourne movie, so can't accuse it of copying, but it does really have a similar kind of structure, the first chapters, to like the initial Bourne movies. Anyway.
Okay, so chapter 1, she jumps off a building, and she gets the heart transplant from what is presumed to be the lady, but is not shown to be the lady yet, because it's blatantly obvious. She's in a coma for a year, and then it goes into the backstory of her brutal training, which is
Oh god, yeah.
which is basically, I'm going to call it standard brutal training because it's been done before, which is just multiple kids get trained, and then the way to pass that training is to kill all the other kids, and the one kid who remains is the top kid, and that is what she
Well,
was.
actually, it wasn't kill all; it was the kill one. So
Was
you
it?
were paired up against one of the been like during parts of training, like
I
it
must have
has
misread that bit.
reassemble have a teacher of a gun to your head, and you have to quickly assemble a gun within a time frame, and if you don't, the teacher pulls a trigger and shoots you. And then like they realized it mentions that she was very close to this one boy. And they went, this could cause a problem with having her being cold hearted. So they paired her up against, because basically they got the final challenge was paired against another school classmate, and you had to kill the other classmate. So they paired her against the boy that she
That was it,
liked
and then she had a
and
knife
forced
to
him
his
to kill
throat,
him.
and he said, "If you don't hurry up and kill me, I will have to kill you." And that's when she did, and that's when it shows her heartbreaking for the first time or something.
Yes, because it was the boy she fancied, basically.
Yeah.
Without trying to spoil too much about it, but the first bit, I think, the first chapter, I think, definitely is quite strong. And yet, after the first chapter, I don't remember much. I'm having to like remind myself as we're talking of the other chapters because they're not. I don't know. It's just not giving me the
Yeah.
same memory.
The only
You
other
know,
notes I have for chapter 1 is that there's a lot of real creepy men, and she's 15.
yeah, there's a lot of well, one of them is normal, and then the other one's just like, I wouldn't mind doing that. Like, oh,
Yeah, but then he's like, "Oh, she's really pretty," and he's like, "Yeah, but she's like 14 or 15," and it's like, "Oh,
yeah, she's the most mature looking 15-year-old I've ever seen in
yes."
my life. But yeah, there is. She does basically almost decapitate him. So I mean, shortly after, we do get a bit of nudity of this character, although it's complete like medical almost. Like there's no sexualization of this character, which is quite good. It's actually super like mature in how it handles her.
Yeah,
Like
the art
there's
style does it well.
yeah, it's very realistic. We'll get to that when we get to the art section, obviously. But story wise, I'm not overly how to put it.
Well, we have missed a lot of context, so
Yeah, I mean, I'm how to put it. I'm not as keen on the whole like holding the memories of the other person very well. It doesn't. It's not very plausible. I know that sounds a bit weird, but considering how majority of this manga is more realism and the art style is very realism, it was like what was it called? Exaggerated realism.
yeah.
And then this whole memory thing, the heart is very Ghost in the Shell kind of
Right.
shit. It feels a bit out of place.
Well, I'll give you a break
And
from talking because I've got what I've got for my notes for the chapters, and I'll go through those. Chapter 2 is where it states and shows she has memories from the heart as well,
hmm,
and then it shows that City Hunter's partner was killed by protecting a child from jumping in front of a car,
hmm.
which shows the strength of her conviction. Because eventually, if they do sort of merge the characters together and they get aspects of each other, she'll get the heart's conviction sort of thing, maybe, in a way.
Maybe.
Chapter 3 is where City Hunter is introduced, which is where she's just walking around and she sees a message or what is it, like a written document of City Hunter, and she's like, "Oh, I recognize that guy." And that's when she decides to go to try and meet him.
Oh, when she's raiding the
Yeah.
lab and after she wakes up, she notices. She remembers it, and then she has memories of this like whiteboard to find to write a note on it, which was apparently in the City Hunter series. Women used to write on this board in the train station, asking him for help, and he would pick up the messages off this board and help him. Although this was years ago, so it's not actually a thing anymore. But she has these faint memories of it due to the heart blowing to his wife.
And then a plot thing happens where right at the end, she basically kills everybody and leaves. And the old man who saved her life by giving her the heart comments that she doesn't have the glass heart anymore because at this point she has like no reaction to killing people at all anymore.
Hmm.
I don't know what they meant with that, but that was chapter 3.
Which I think also shows a weakness in that character's mindset, because the reason why she was having trouble with her heart was because she was killing people who probably didn't deserve to be killed. When she was just killing the guards of the agency, she wasn't killing innocent people.
Yeah, that comes up in chapter 5 because I've got no notes for chapter 4 because basically nothing happens.
Yeah, it just.
And then chapter 5, my only note is it's perfect. She's perfectly capable of killing people, and only until she attempts to kill an innocent guy does the other personality sort of try to stop her. But that's not. But it's like the people she was killing before in the base. They could have been innocent people. They could have just been working there and had no idea because it was a medical
Unlikely,
facility.
but yeah.
And only at this point is she like, no, you can't kill that guy. I found that a little odd.
It's a bit inconsistent in certain parts when it comes to the personality of the memories of the previous person.
My last note is it's not sure if it's a serious series or a gag series, and that kind of annoys me.
So, from what I gathered, whenever you're going through the perspective of Angel, it's very serious. When you're going through the perspective of the City Hunter guy, it's the opposite.
Yeah, I assume City Hunter was very similar. I just don't know the context because I haven't seen that. It's very Golden Boy sort of style in a way.
Yeah, very Golden Boy. But I guess we can talk about when we get to his character bit.
Yeah.
So
that's all I have for plot.
Yeah, the plot, as we said, there's not too much going on, but it's also I don't know if this is a translation issue, because at the end of the day, this is an old manga.
It could also be a translation issue.
A lot of old manga, the fan translations are generally not great. And I just found it just not the easiest to follow. It's just it's hard to explain. It wasn't like clicking with me as much as it could do. Maybe it's because these kind of plots I normally watch rather than read.
It does seem more like a show than a manga.
Yeah, and I wonder if it does actually feel like an old school anime, and like I'm looking at screenshots of an anime rather than a. Hard to explain, really, but probably not the best bit of the plot bit. So I'll just go on to the characters and see if this helps expand. So we'll start off with our protagonist, Glassheart. As we mentioned before, she was trained from the age of 5, the killing machine. And she was only 1 out of 20 that survived.
That's why I assumed that she killed all the rest of them in the competition thing.
It does mention that it was you just put her against her partner. It was just that the other training after that killed off the remaining ones. If it meant that she killed all of them, it didn't really explain that. It just showed her killing the one.
Yeah, that's what I got from it. But fine.
I think how it mentions there was it was a pairing scheme that you had to kill the person you're paired against. But that would make more sense, because if you pinned one person against many, no matter how good they are, they would tire out. So it makes sense to just do a pairing kind of thing. But anyway, but she's still, she's 15, she's very much John Wick levels of lethal. If you know what I mean by that. We don't.
She's
we haven't
Golgo
seen much of
13
her
level of accurate as well.
Yeah, we don't really see too much of her personality yet. It's kind of one where the training's made her suppress her
Yeah, I think it's
emotions
going to
to
be
some
more
extent.
over time. Her personality is going to come back, sort of, or
Oh
develop. Because
yeah,
right now she's kind of doesn't have one.
it's gonna be one of those ones where the other characters bring out the best in her, because it's quite clear it's made quite clear that she's a good person who's been made to do bad things. That's very clear
Yeah, with the
what it's
imagery
gonna
of her
be.
heartbreaking and things.
Well, yeah, even though she's been trained to be a ruthless assassin since she's a kid, she still doesn't want to do it. It's very hard to get over that kind of brainwashing. So it shows like a strong level of empathy for it to break through all that. So there's not too much to really say on her. Design wise, she's perfectly fine.
Yep.
Everyone's very realistic in this. So yeah, there's not much to really say on her. To be fair, she's a protagonist. We don't have much on her. It's one of those ones where it's going to be a lot more
So far,
slower.
it's like she's a silent protagonist in a way. She doesn't have the personality
Mm,
yet that will eventually get
yeah,
it over time.
she doesn't talk very much at the moment. Yeah, it's going to be very much one of the ones like Goblin Slayer, where their personality is eked out of them bit by the comrades. So it's going to be a bit of a slow burn, that one. So moving on, we have the city hunter guy, Ryu, I think his name is. Um, he's
I'm
a
not a
silly
fan, but I'll let
man.
you go first.
He's a silly man that goes around picking up other women while showing off his giant erection during a swimming pool.
Yep,
Yay!
yep.
This character kind of turns this manga from a serious one to a silly one, and it is very much Whiplash. He's just so it's just so tonal
It For
Whiplashy.
me, it's
I
not even tasteful gag humor. It's a product of
no,
its time, and I've
the
read things
problem is
around that
time,
time, so it's fine.
but it's also he's just a massive perv, and I guess the whole point is it, and I think that's what they're trying to make is his behavior is caused by the loss of his wife, and the fact that after she died,
It's a
her
coping
heart was
mechanism sort
taken
of
to
thing.
save someone else, and the person not transporting said heart was murdered, and the heart disappeared. So the fact of his wife not just died tragically on I think it was their day of their wedding, I think it was, or whatever it was, they she died, but also her heart was stolen,
Oh, and
and
all the other
he's
organs
been
were damaged in that accident.
yeah, but the fact that
Yeah.
someone stole the heart and he's been trying to track it down, that would mess up his mind a bit. I mean, he reminds me very heavily of Dryer. The fact of he has a perverted personality which hides the fact that they're a skilled fighter and they have this serious side, and it's just um
Yes, but we didn't know that because we don't know what City Hunter is. So the only context we had when reading this was what just a random pervert character for no reason.
and the fact that you can tell in certain bits that he must have a bit more to him, the fact of that the organization knows of him and somewhat fear him says a lot about his skills. And it does say when it does mention him, it does say something about weapon specialist or whatnot on the computer. So eh, it's one of those ones where it's definitely a slow burn manga. We're not going to get much out of these 5 chapters when it
No.
comes to these people.
For me, it's just
Do
a
you have
product of
anything?
its time, and I just don't like his particular character. But
Mm,
it might over time with his interactions with the characters grow on me. But in the first 5, I was not a fan.
yeah, I think you might see more maturity with him once he interacts more with Angel. We didn't get any interaction with him in the first 5 chapters. Um, so other than these two, we have Kakari, Ryu's wife, who died in the car crash. heart transplant angel. Yes, we don't really know too much about it other than that she was clearly a good person, and she worked in the organization with Ryu, and they got married. And yeah, we don't really know much about her other than she's a good person, really. Anyone else? I guess you got the police officer friend of Ryu, who's been trying to help him locate the missing heart, and clearly they have like a almost relationship, kind of flirty relationship with each other. That's about it. I
The
mean,
last character was the. I mean, it showed him
boss.
a couple of times. The old man who saved her. He's head of the organization.
Oh, the boss, Mr. Lee.
The boss guy, yes.
Yeah, who eventually starts. She wakes up just before they turn off the machines because they got sick of because she apparently into cardiac arrest countless times over the year.
Yeah,
Another
because
point by it.
wasn't it she stated that she wanted to die, but then the spirit in her was like, no, you need to live and go live your life and stuff. Yeah, something like that.
One thing to point out on plot bit, going back a little bit, rewinding here. If she was in a coma for a year, her muscles will be fecked. She would not be able to. She would need so much physio.
She's a
After
manga character, she
years.
doesn't need to.
Hmm?
She's a manga character, she has no reason to.
Yeah, it's just instantly everything body fully.
They could have gone somewhere with that and said, she's not as strong now, but over time, when she gets her actual skills back again, she'll become more dangerous. But they didn't go that route. Not many
Yeah.
places do, to be fair.
Any other characters you want to talk about?
I don't think there are any other characters, are there?
The blind coffee maker bartender guy who clearly badass, and that's
Only
about
appears
it.
in chapter 5 at the moment, and
Yeah.
his backstory would be in chapter 6 because that's when Glassheart walks in.
Well, probably will have his backstory, but we'll probably have a bit more interaction with. So next we've got art. The manga is incredibly well detailed. The characters have quite the realistic look to them compared to most modern day mangas. I kind of miss this style a
It's
bit.
very 90s.
Obviously, I'm reading some old scans of this manga, so some of the details are lost, but otherwise, it still looks pretty good. The action scenes, actually, to be fair, are fairly easy to follow. The action scenes they are. But other than that, yeah, the art's great. You could tell it must take the guy ages to do. Design aspect, as we said, everything's quite realistic. They probably look like what they would be in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, in the Golden Boy Flame of Recca era with that sort of art style.
Yeah. Like I said, there's nothing to really point out with character designs because they all just look like normal people.
It's the down to earth sort of. They are people, so
Yeah, they're wearing real clothes, they're wearing real stuff. They're just normal people, yeah. Anything else you want to add to the art and design aspect?
no, it's pretty standard.
Some additional notes I will apply. I already mentioned that as alternative universe film. But one thing I did have a look up because I was concerned about this because how it started off, I was worried that they were going to pair off this 15-year-old, this guy in the late 30s. I was very worried about that because that's what it seemed like it was
Yeah,
going to
with
go
the
down.
gag style of how his character acts, that's what I thought too.
I did look up like a bit of like a character summary thing online, but apparently it's not going to go that route because I can see that instantly putting people off if they read the first 5 chapters. But that aspect. Thankfully, no. He treats her like the daughter of him and his wife, basically. So it's a father-daughter relationship instead. Thank God for that. And there's someone else. There's someone else the same age as Angel who becomes a love interest, and it's someone we've already mentioned. From what I gather. So that's good. I was very worried about that aspect. I'm happy he didn't go down the awful route of that. Would I read more is the next question, really. And maybe, but I'll probably have to read City Hunter first because I really do feel like I'm missing loads of context.
360 chapters for me is very, very daunting.
There's a difference between reading all of it and reading a bit more. Sometimes I'll read a little bit more, like get past complete the first arc and not go back to the series. So maybe I'll do that, but
So when this first got revealed for us to do, I could have sworn I read it before, and I may have, but I'm not sure if I read this one or some sort of City Hunter-esque in their universe thing, because there's quite a few.
City Hunter's been around for. Maybe what I could do instead, I could watch the anime of City Hunter to get the plot of
There's
that,
an anime of
because
City
that'd be
Hunter.
quicker and easier to do than reading the manga of it. There's a possibility. I have loads of things. I've got a backlog, as Brad will point out
We
to me
all
all
do.
the time. I have a backlog of stuff to watch and to read, well, mainly to watch. I've got a pile of 20 books next to me, which I still need to read. While I've been currently making a Christmas list for my mother about what books I might want for Christmas. I'm like, yeah, I could have a few more. I haven't read the last 20. So yeah, maybe at some point, maybe it's not top of my list though. But you?
Yeah, it's not the top of my list either, and it didn't drag me in like I thought it might do.
Yeah, I was actually expecting when I flicked through the first chapter very briefly when we spun the wheel for it. I kind of I don't know. I expected it to grab my attention a lot more than it actually did.
I don't know if it's like a modern manga thing of now when you read things, they have to grab you in the first couple of chapters. Back then, they didn't really need to do that.
Hmm. Well, here's the thing, though. I think the first chapter of this actually is a lot more grabby. I
Yeah,
think the
I
first
agree.
chapter does a good job, but then,
I have more notes for chapter 1 than every other of them.
yeah, the first chapter I think is actually pretty solid. I think it slowed down. It was very much like you're off to high speed and suddenly you're hitting the brakes very quickly. And I think that's it. It felt like the first chapter made it feel like this is going to be a short manga series, but a very detailed one. And then suddenly it went. Maybe he did start off not knowing how whether he'd do a long one or not, and then eventually got like permission. Oh yeah, you can do a really long one.
It's possible.
Slow down the brakes. I don't know. Difficult to say. Um, but other than that, yeah, have you got any more anything else you want to mention?
Oh, it's just this. There's no, for me, standout really. It's more
No.
of a standard 5 out of 10 if I've ever read a 5 out of 10.
Oh, I wouldn't be that harsh. I wouldn't be that
It doesn't
harsh.
have all the context bits I'd need in the first 5 chapters.
Yeah,
Like,
and I guess that's
it's because it's made as sort of a sequel. If you're reading it in
mm,
a vacuum, you have no idea what's happening.
yes, and I didn't realize it because it doesn't call itself. It doesn't refer.
Yeah, that's why I have to knock
Obviously,
up a point at least off for that.
yeah. Well, I can't look. I don't look off point for that because that's more my issue
Yeah, but if it
rather
was a
than theirs.
sequel and it had it in its title, you'd sort of understand. But if you're just going past and you read, oh, Glass Heart, like, what's that got to do with anything else? And just read it as it is, there's a lot you
Mm,
completely miss.
yeah. So as a standalone, it's not rare, but I guess if you've read City Hunter, this will be quite good, especially after this is like the project he continued for ages, but in hooks of it.
But if people
Um,
haven't read City Hunter, it's apparently really popular, so I do recommend you read that at least.
yeah, it's definitely an
Even
old
if you don't
school.
read this one, City Hunter's supposed to be really good, so you just gotta read that one. And then if you read
Well, at
that one
least it
and
was very big at the time, but
but then if people have read that one and they're reading and listening to this, if there's any context you think would be nice for us to know this, because like I probably wouldn't read much more of this, but if it's really amazing and you think we should, Put it in the comments, and I'll read more of it.
Hmm. Well, I think that's everything we've got to say in this one.
On Glass Heart, yes.
Angel Heart.
God,
So until
that really
next
annoys me.
time.
That it's just got two different hearts in it.
Yeah, Glass Heart's the her co-name, but the manga title's actually Angel Heart.
I'm
Because
totally
they
never going to mix
referred.
those up.
Yeah, I don't understand why it is a difference. But anyway, until next time. Goodbye.
See you later.